my brother Tyler demanded I pay for a $5,000 rare book to use as his wedding centerpiece. I'd already paid $15,000 of my own money for his big day. I told him no, I had nothing left. That's when my mother Jennifer looked at me and said, "The greatest gift you can give your brother's wedding, Emma, is you vanishing from this family. Forever." I didn't cry, I didn't beg. I just stood up, grabbed my keys, and walked out. They didn't realize that when I vanished, so did the caterer, the florist, and the string quartet. The wedding day came, but the wedding didn't. Drop a comment and let me know where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. I'd love to know who's part of our community. The sound of that door closing echoed in the cold Madison night. I sat in my car, the engine off, and for the first time in my life, I didn't feel the familiar sting of tears. I didn't feel shame. I felt a cold, sharp rage. It was clarifying. I drove to my apartment, walked past the stacks of wedding favors I'd spent all weekend tying ribbons on, and opened my laptop. The clock on the wall read 10:17 p.m. I opened my credit card statement. There it was. $15,000 of my own money. Charges I'd paid over the last 6 months for his perfect day. The caterer, the florist, the string quartet. I picked up the phone. They wanted me to vanish. Fine. But I was taking my $15,000 with me. I called the caterer's 24-hour emergency line. A sleepy voice answered. "Yes, I need to cancel the catering order for the Ellis wedding tomorrow." The woman protested, mentioned the contract. "I'm aware," I said, my voice flat. "I'm disputing the charge with my credit card company as a fraudulent family expense. The person who signed the contract is no longer affiliated with the event." One call down. Next, the florist. Same script. "Cancel the order." "But ma'am, the roses are already arranged. Then you can sell them to someone else." "I'm disputing the charge." Finally, the string quartet. "The Ellis wedding. It's canceled." By 1 a.m., every vendor I had paid for was gone. I felt no guilt. I just felt finished. You're probably wondering why I'd do that. Why I would sabotage my own brother's wedding. To understand, you have to understand my family. For as long as I can remember, I was the family scapegoat and my brother Tyler was the golden child. Our family owned the oldest independent bookstore in Madison. It was my parents' entire identity. But it was failing. My father, Christopher, was too proud to adapt, and Tyler was busy with his new finance job in another city. 4 years ago, they were weeks from bankruptcy. At the time, I was a freelance graphic designer. I had just landed a $60,000 contract with a national publisher. It was my ticket, my down payment on a real life, a way to finally get out on my own. Then my mother Jennifer called. She was hysterical, crying, begging me to come home and work her magic. So I did. I walked away from the $60,000 contract. I put my life on hold and moved back into my childhood bedroom. I spent the next 6 months working for free. I poured every ounce of my design and marketing skill into that store. I completely rebranded it, built an e-commerce website from scratch, and used my illustration skills to launch a social media campaign that went locally viral. I ran Meet the Author nights and started a children's story hour. Slowly it worked. The debt receded. New customers came in. The store was saved. When the bookstore was finally profitable, my father Christopher called a family meeting to celebrate. I remember I straightened my hair. I put on a nice dress. I thought, this is it. This is the moment. They finally see me. My father stood up at the head of the table. He cleared his throat and announced that he was officially handing over control of the newly profitable bookstore. Not to me. To Tyler, my brother who hadn't been in the state for 8 months. Tyler understands the numbers, my father said, beaming. He's got the head for this. It's time for a man to run the business. My mother Jennifer just smiled and patted Tyler's hand. They dismissed my $60,000 sacrifice, the months of unpaid labor, the entire rebrand, as me just being creative. I know what you're thinking. Why did I stay? Why would any sane person put up with that? It's a hard question to answer unless you've lived it. When you grow up in a house like that, you develop invisible chains. You're living in a prison that has no bars. It's a concept in psychology, learned helplessness. After years of being told your efforts don't matter and that your reality is wrong, you start to believe it. You accept the disrespect. You accept the crumbs. Because leaving feels just as terrifying as staying. Your entire sense of self is tied to this desperate, irrational hope. The hope that one more sacrifice, one more act of loyalty, will be the one that finally makes them see you. It's not weakness, it's the only survival strategy you know. And I was the best survivor I knew how to be. So I stayed. I swallowed the betrayal, went back to my apartment, and just kept going. I kept helping at the store on weekends, kept taking their calls, kept hoping. Which brings us to this morning. The morning after the wedding that wasn't. My phone was a brick of notifications. Voicemails from Jennifer, each one more hysterical than the last. I don't know what you've done, Emma, but you've humiliated this family. Call me now. I ignored it. I put on my running shoes and went for a run along the waterfront here in Portland, Maine. I'd moved here 6 months ago trying to get away from them, but I kept that last thread of connection. I kept answering their calls. I kept hoping. The cold air felt good clearing my head. When I got back to my apartment, the escalation had gone public. My friend Ethan had sent me a screenshot. A long, furious message from my brother Tyler posted on the Madison Community Facebook page for everyone we grew up with to see. He named me. He told everyone I was unstable and jealous. He claimed I'd had a psychotic breakdown and sabotaged his wedding because I couldn't handle his happiness. He painted himself as the victim, the heartbroken brother whose special day was ruined by his crazy sister. And the comments. They flooded in from family, friends, old neighbors. That's awful, Tyler. We're so sorry. I always knew Emma was difficult. Then I saw it, the final knife, a comment from my own mother, Jennifer. We are heartbroken by our daughter's selfish actions, she wrote. We love her, but we are praying for her stability. We will get through this as a family. They weren't just ungrateful, they were actively, publicly trying to destroy my reputation. They were painting me as unhinged to cover up their own cruelty. I took a sip of cold coffee. The rage from last night was gone. All that was left was a cold, quiet precision. This was no longer a family dispute. This was an attack. I picked up the phone and called Ethan. Hey, I said, my voice steady. You work at that law firm. I need a recommendation. Not for a family lawyer. I need someone who handles investments and partnerships. Emma, what's going on? They're trying to ruin me, I said. So I'm severing the last financial tie. There was one more thing they didn't know I had. Years ago, my maternal grandmother, the only person who ever saw me, the one who loved the bookstore, left me $10,000 in her will. It was specifically earmarked for the store. I, trying to be the good daughter, had invested that entire inheritance directly into the bookstore to keep it afloat during another one of their crises. Now I was taking it back. I didn't just call and ask for it. I had Ethan's firm draft a formal legal notice of divestment. I was withdrawing my $10,000 capital investment from the family business effective immediately. They told me to vanish. They were about to find out what my vanishing truly cost. The lawyer's call from Madison was the one I was expecting. I thought it would be Jennifer crying or Tyler yelling. Instead, the call came from a number I didn't recognize with a downtown area code. Is this Emma Ellis? The voice was slick professional. I'm calling on behalf of the Ellis Family Bookstore. We've received your notice of divestment. I kept my voice flat cold. And the lawyer said, and I could hear the smirk in his voice, I'm afraid you can't do that. Your $10,000 is locked in. My heart didn't drop. It just stopped. What do you mean locked in? We have a revised partnership agreement filed with the state 3 years ago, just before your brother took over management. It converts your $10,000 inheritance investment into a simple, non-controlling loan. It's not due for repayment for another 10 years. You signed it yourself. My blood ran cold. Not from fear, but from a sudden sharp clarity. I never signed anything. The lawyer sighed, an exaggerated bored sound. Miss Ellis, I'm looking at the document right now. Your signature is on the last page. It's ironclad. It was filed with the state. We can't release the funds. Send it to me, I said. Excuse me. Send me the file. Right now. If you're so confident, email it to me. He scoffed, but I heard the click of his keyboard. Fine, it's on its way. Have a good day, Miss Ellis. The line clicked dead. My inbox chimed. The subject line read, Ellis Partnership Agreement. Executed. I opened the file. I scrolled past pages of dense legal jargon I didn't understand: partnership duties, capital contributions, loan stipulations. My eyes scanned the text looking for the date. 3 years ago, right after I saved the store, right before they gave it to Tyler. I scrolled down to the last page. Page 12. And there it was. My name. Emma K. Ellis. In my handwriting. Except it wasn't. I stared at it. I zoomed in until the pixels blurred. It was close. It was a very, very good attempt. The E looped just the way I write it. The A was the right shape. But the S was just slightly too sharp. It was the signature of someone who had studied my name, not someone who was my name. They had forged my signature. I leaned back in my chair, the realization washing over me in a wave of ice. All the pieces clicked into place. The strange meeting I wasn't invited to. The way my father insisted I didn't need to worry about the paperwork when Tyler took over. They hadn't just sidelined me. They hadn't just given my work to my brother. They had actively, consciously conspired to steal my inheritance. My mother, my father, my brother, they sat in that office and faked my name on a legal document to trap my money. To ensure I could never pull it out. To ensure they had a safety net paid for by me while they publicly called me selfish and unstable. The devastation hit me, but it wasn't sadness. It was the horrifying, sickening realization that I had never known these people at all. She was right. I was confused, but the cold, analytical part of my brain clicked back on. I needed to see this. I needed to understand the full scope of their deception. It was a crime. They hadn't just betrayed me. They had stolen from me. They had stolen from my grandmother. And they thought they'd gotten away with it. Things moved quickly after that. A forgery investigation isn't a family dispute. It's a criminal matter. The threat of prosecution combined with the $15,000 in wedding debt they now owed was the final straw. The bookstore without my capital, or my free marketing services, went bankrupt. I read the public notice online. Ellis Books, LLC. Insolvent. My father's reputation was ruined. Tyler's finance career in Madison was over. And the bank began foreclosure proceedings on my parents' house to pay the debts. I was in my new apartment in Portland, Maine, overlooking the water. My freelance business was finally thriving. I was working on a new branding project for a local coffee roaster. The sunlight was streaming through my window, and I felt peaceful. Then my phone rang. An unknown number from a Madison area code. I answered. For a second there was just sound, a choked, wet sound. Then a voice I barely recognized. Emma. It was Jennifer, my mother. But this wasn't the cold, dismissive woman who had told me to vanish. This was someone completely broken. Emma, please, she sobbed. Please, you have to stop this. We're losing the house. The bank is foreclosing. Your father, he's a broken man. He hasn't left the bedroom in a week. Tyler's fiancée, Sydney. She left him. She called off the wedding for good. It's all gone, Emma. Everything. I stood at my window watching a boat sail across the harbor. I felt nothing. Just empty. Please. She begged, her voice cracking. I know things were said. But you have to stop this. Tell the lawyers to stop. You're the only one. Please. We're your family. I let the silence sit for a moment. Then my voice came out and it was cold and quiet. You told me to vanish. You said it was the greatest gift. I just gave you what you asked for. We didn't mean it, she shrieked, the old Jennifer flashing through. You know we didn't mean it. It was just, we were angry. Please, Emma, don't do this. We can't lose the house. We can explain. Explain what I asked. Explain how you handed my work to Tyler. Explain how you publicly humiliated me. Or explain how you sat at a desk and stole from me. The sobbing on the other end of the line stopped. It was a dead cold, incriminating silence. "Did you mean it?" I asked, my voice as flat and gray as the water outside when you forged my name on my grandmother's inheritance. She didn't answer. I could hear her breathing, a sharp-hitched gasp. She had no words. There were no excuses. There was no one else to blame. Emma, we. The sobbing on the other end of the line stopped. I hung up the phone, and for the first time in my life, I blocked her number. The legal case settled quickly. To avoid criminal prosecution for forgery, my family signed over the last of their assets. The house was sold at auction. The money from the sale went to the banks, and what little was left went to me to repay the inheritance they had stolen. They were left with nothing. Nothing but the consequences of their own choices. My life in Portland, Maine is quiet now. My freelance graphic design business is thriving. I have a new mentor, Julie, the woman who owns the cafe downstairs. She's tough and kind and reminds me of my grandmother. My friend Ethan moved here 6 months ago. We're talking about starting our own small agency. I have a found family built on respect, not obligation. I sit in my new home office, an office I paid for with my success, and I look out at the ocean. I finally understand. For so long, I believed that family was an unconditional prison. That because we shared a bloodline, I was required to endure the abuse, the dismissal, the disrespect. I thought cutting ties was the ultimate betrayal. But I was wrong. True family is a bond of mutual respect and support. When that bond is replaced with exploitation, when it's used as a weapon to keep you small, then cutting the bloodline isn't an act of betrayal. It's the ultimate act of survival. It's choosing to find yourself to build a life where you are valued, rather than staying in a place where you are only tolerated. It's the moment you stop letting go of yourself and finally let go of them. The story ends with me looking forward, not back. I'm on a video call with a major new client, laughing, confident, and free. The camera pulls back, showing me happy and at peace in the life she built. This story is for anyone who has ever been made to feel small by the people who were supposed to build them up. If you've ever had to fight for your own worth, share this video to let others know they are not alone. And tell us in the comments what's one step you've taken to choose yourself.